Hi, I'm Dani, CSI Critical Scripture Investigator and daughter of Bishop Michael McDaniel. I hope you enjoy this study. The Apostle Paul employs both obedience and submission as essential categories in Christian theology, yet he does not use them interchangeably. Obedience concerns response to authority, while submission concerns posture toward authority. Confusing the two produces either legalism, obedience without submission, or passivity, submission without obedience. This study seeks to rightly divide Paul's teaching by examining vocabulary, covenant structure, redemptive order, and practical implications within the age of grace. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning. Romans 15:4. Defining the terms in Pauline context. Obedience, hypokoi, Greek, meaning, upakoi, hypokoi, to hear under, to comply, to respond to a command. Emphasizes action and response. Key Pauline texts: Romans 1:5, the obedience of faith; Romans 6:16-17, obedience from the heart; 2 Corinthians 10:5-6, obedience to Christ; Philippians 2:12, obedience worked out, theological function. Obedience answers the question, what am I required to do? On submission, hypotasso, Greek meaning. Upatasso, hypotasso, to arrange under, to yield, to align oneself. Emphasizes attitude, order, and willing alignment. Key Pauline texts: Romans 13:1, submission to church authorities; Ephesians 5:21, mutual submission; Colossians 3:18, household order; Titus 3:1, submission to rulers, theological function. Submission answers the question, how do I relate to authority? Covenantal distinction, law versus grace. Obedience under the law. External, command-driven, enforced through penalties. The man which doeth those things shall live by them. Romans 10:5. Under Mosaic law, obedience precedes blessing. Obedience under grace. Internal, spirit-empowered, flowing from justification. But God be thanked that ye were the servants of sin, but ye have obeyed from the heart. Romans 6:17. In the age of grace, obedience follows salvation, not secures it. Submission as a heart posture. Paul treats submission as voluntary alignment, not coerced compliance. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. Romans 13:1. Submission is not blind obedience, not loss of moral agency, not unquestioning allegiance. We ought to obey God rather than men. Acts 5:29. This principle governs Pauline submission theology. The obedience of faith, Romans 1:5. This phrase governs all Pauline ethics. What it is. Faith produces obedience. Obedience validates faith. Faith remains the ground. Faith worketh by love. Galatians 5:6. What it is not. Works-based righteousness. External compliance without regeneration. For if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. Galatians 2:21. Christ as the supreme model. Christ's obedience. Active obedience, fulfilling the law. Passive obedience, suffering unto death. He became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Philippians 2:8. Christ's submission. Submission to the Father's will, not submission to injustice as virtue. Willing alignment, not resignation. Not my will, but thine be done. Luke 22:42. Paul grounds Christian obedience and submission in Christology, not moralism. Practical Pauline applications. A. Obedience without submission. Produces resentment, breeds legalism, mimics Phariseeism, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. 2 Timothy 3:5. Submission without obedience. Produces passivity, enables abuse, neglects holiness. Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. Romans 6:1-2. Ecclesial and social structures, church. Submission to spiritual leadership, Hebrews 13:17. Obedience to doctrine, 1 Timothy 4:16. Home. Mutual submission, Ephesians 5:21. Ordered roles without inferiority. Theological synthesis 1. Submission shapes obedience 2. Obedience proves submission 3. Faith empowers both 4. Grace grounds both 5. Christ defines both. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Philippians 2:13. Closing statement. Pauline theology refuses shallow obedience and hollow submission. True Christian living flows from regenerated hearts submitted to God and expressed through spirit-empowered obedience. Where submission is absent, obedience becomes bondage. Where obedience is absent, submission becomes sentiment. But where both operate under grace, Christ is exalted, the church is ordered, and God alone receives the glory. Whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do all to the glory of God. 1 Corinthians 10:31, Soli Deo Gloria. Denny CSI. Critical Scripture Investigator, Grace and Peace.